our national organised crime group. As you've seen from our statement this afternoon, police has dealt a considerable blow to the Comanchero motorcycle gang for their illegal operations in an investigation that has spanned 3 years. We've laid a total of 137 charges against almost every member of the Comanchero's leadership and several of their gang prospects. Those charged include 17 office holders, 10 patched members and 14 prospects of the gang. This has been the result of a 4-phase operation. While mindful that there are judicial processes underway now, I can say that police will allege the Comancheros were operating as an organised criminal group, conducting a complex money laundering operation, drug importation and supply operations, and also running a commission scheme to fund, amongst other things, military-style training for some of the members. The investigation represents the biggest single blow to Comanchero's operations since Operation Nova. Police have dealt a blow right to the heart of this gang's alleged activities. It's an exceptional outcome and shows the dedication of police investigators over the course of 3 years. We know that from the minute they had a presence in this country, the Comancheros saw themselves as the #1 gang in this country. From the very beginning, there's been a multi-agency effort to disrupt, target and enforce criminal activity that has been taking place. This has resulted in a significant criminal prosecution case, as well as assets and profits being stripped away from their grasp. Police have worked alongside Customs, Corrections and Inland Revenue as part of these investigations. We'll take advantage of all of government approach to stop the misery that these criminal groups inflict on our communities. Finally, I want to acknowledge the work of Greg and our NOCG teams. Much of the way their team works provides an invaluable backdrop for the focused work to be undertaken by the new National Gang Unit and District Gang Disruption teams under Assistant Commissioner Paul Basham, who has responsibility for the NOCG group. The results from this operation illustrate the breadth of police's activity to disrupt and target gangs and organised crime. The three of us will be happy to take questions from you. Thank you.
Commissioner, is this the end of the Comancheros in New Zealand?
The Comancheros are a very persistent group, not just in New Zealand but internationally. I don't expect they're going to stop their efforts, but it's very clear that we are ready and able to disrupt those efforts at every turn.
Given the recent news around the gang bill coming through and the success of police in targeting the Comancheros here, are these new powers to target gangs still needed?
They are going after a different set of activities. What we see with gangs is the harm they cause is very broad. We're highlighting today something that's focused on significant unlawful activity involving money laundering, involving drug supply. At the other end, gangs cause fear in our communities by their presence and the way they intimidate, and that's really where the other legislation is targeted.
Commissioner, what's your awareness of how many Comanchero gang members remain? How large is the gang in New Zealand?
I might ask Greg to give us a bit of a sense of that.
Oh, thanks, Commissioner. So at the moment, we think there's about 92 Comanchero members in the country. That's involving the hierarchy, patch members, nominees that they call prospects, and what we call sort of key associates who are snapping on the door becoming Comancheros. From that group, currently we believe only 11 are currently not facing any form of criminal charge, so pretty significant.
Can you clarify what's meant by office holders?
Well, that's anyone that's sort of from holding any of the sort of positions that are of power within the group, within the structure that they have, commonly.
But not patched members?
No, includes patch members as well.
And with regards to the money laundering that's gone on, professional facilitators, can you talk about what the roles these people had for this?
Well, yeah, there's accountants, there's an accountant involved and other people who were sort of part of the whole money laundering aspect to it, to that side. But it just shows the nature of these investigations now, because our investigations that we run now actually do involve both the criminal aspects to it, but also that movement of the money aspect to it. So they're very complex investigations.
Where was this military training taking place, and what was the nature of the skills that were being taught during this?
Well, it was, well, we can say it was in the Auckland area and northern area, but we can't go into much more in the detail of that because the matter's before the court. But you can you can work out from what we mean by military-style training what that means.
Is the National Gang Unit now up and running?
I'll go.
Yes, it is. The National Gang Unit was established earlier this year. We're with a core leadership team that's tasked with establishing it proper. That will be in place by the time the legislation comes alive on the 21st of November. And behind that, we are organising the training and the various other sort of moving parts that enable the effect that the police are looking for in order to be in a position to enforce the law from the 21st of November.
How many staff have expressed interest to be part of that unit?
Quite a few. There's 21 positions in the establishment for the group here. We'll be making some announcements later this week as to what the numbers will look like across the 12 districts. And at that point, we'll be in a better position to answer your question as to determine the level of interest. But those are announcements that will occur later this week.
Ask about Aussie Malcolm just very quickly. Have you been following these reports? Will police continue to investigate the poster's death? And are you comfortable police did everything they could to investigate at the time?
There was an investigation back in 1992, and that led to the conclusion there was insufficient evidence to proceed with a charge. There have been 2 other active investigations underway from more recent times. Exactly where those will go now in light of Mr Malcolm's death, obviously that becomes more challenging. We can't bring a criminal prosecution, but we are assessing the options there.
What is your message to complainants who haven't yet come forward?
Obviously, police is interested in supporting the victims of crime, and we have a role in doing that. Police is unable to bring a prosecution post somebody's death, so our doors are open to hear from people, and we will provide the support that we're able to through the services that we have access to.
Will the IPCA be looking at how things were handled back in?
The PCA, it was known as the Police Complaints Authority at that time, did examine police's original investigation, and was satisfied with the conclusion that we reached at that time.
How many police were involved in this operation across the 3 years, and what's your message to them in terms of how much of a win this is?
I'll let Greg speak to the detail of how many staff contributed, but what I would want to say is this is outstanding work. You know, the Comancheros are a sophisticated crime group who go to great lengths to obscure their offending and to avoid detection. So the fact that we've been able to bring these prosecutions shows the quality of the police work that's being done, meticulous investigations, skilled surveillance, all of the things that you would expect are needed to hit such a sophisticated organised crime group. So I'm absolutely praise and commend the work of our people, but you might want to speak to the numbers.
How confident are you that these charges are going to stick?
Oh, look, that's a process for the courts, and we'll do our level best, but it's a high threshold for us to bring a prosecution, so we don't bring one unless we think we're well positioned.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, look, as I said, a big investigation. I think this shows the real strength and the intent of the establishment of the National Organised Crime Group. Since I've been in the role, we've expanded right across New Zealand now, and that means that we really can see the whole way in which the system is working across New Zealand in terms of how organised crime and gangs are operating, right? And I think that's the point of us being able to do that job down in Christchurch recently. You've seen that as a connection, we say, to the whole overarching business policy of the Comancheros here. But I also want to point out, you know, customs, Inland Revenue, corrections, and other agencies that continually support us in these jobs. You know, we work as a collective around trying to protect New Zealand, and that's been an essential part to what we've done in this case. Interestingly, too, I think, you know, we talk about, you know, we talked today about gang patches and in essence about what they mean and the relevance of them. And I think there's an important thing here. If we look at the Comanchero patch, for instance, right when they first arrived here, they made it clear they were going to be the #1 gang here, right? They are seen across Australasia as the most dangerous gang because of the transnational links they have and the propensity for violence. So in Australia and New Zealand, you know, we've basically ran jointly a thing called Operation Condor, which was a focus on trying to suppress and disrupt and dismantle the Comancheros, which has had a reasonable effect, right? But as the Commissioner said, they're pretty relentless. If you look on their patch, they have what's called the 1%er. And you look for those ones like Hells Angels and others that have that 1%er on there. What that means is they're telling people they're going to be the #1 gang in the country, they're going to go to war against other gangs, they're going to operate outside of New Zealand's society in essence. So it's understanding this process. The other interesting thing about the patch, if you look, we talked about this element of a commission piece, is that the patch, and I've worked in this area since the mid-80s, is really a license to print money, and that's why a lot of these people want to get in there and get the patch, because once they have the patch, then the gang is controlling the area in which they environmentally control, and then those people can operate inside that environment and do their criminal business. And this is sort of what will be sheeted home in this case as we develop and put before the court, that we show that that's the action. The other element is their intent to commit serious violence to protect what they're doing. And the Comancheros, we've seen a number of recent murders and others that Comancheros have been led to. A case before the court right now where we will allege the Comancheros attempted to kill a member of a Comanchero, tried to leave the Comancheros. So it gives you the level of violence they're prepared to operate in. We've recovered the commandments of this group, right? And the commandments, interestingly, they say that once a Comanchero, always a Comanchero, and that if you leave the gang, then you will be, they literally say this, you will be put in a body bag unless you find God, but if you're caught operating in an underworld, they'll put you to sleep. So it gives you a level where they're prepared to operate and function in this sense. So this is great news for New Zealand to have these people held accountable. The work that's been done will see significant disruption of supply of serious harmful drugs coming into our communities.
There's a substantial number of
Conscious of the
prospects.
time, if we could kind of get into that.
Yeah.
There's a substantial number of prospects caught up in these charges.
Yep.
How much of a threat do you think the gang's recruitment process is in the country? They have been expanding. So we've seen the Christchurch chapter set up recently. We're seeing one in Central Auckland being set up now. So they're very much intent on they're taking over other chapters from other gangs, basically patching them over. So they've still got an intent on patching over and expanding. But this will seriously disrupt them.
Could you tell us a bit more about sort of the level and the type of violence that the Comancheros have caused in the community?
Well, I just said to you, there's a number of cases where they're tied to murders that have occurred in the community. Operation Weaver is a classic example in South Auckland, where patch members were convicted of that murder. And I've told you about another recent hit. So that's the sort of level we're talking about. Their intent is real.
Commissioner, 2 final questions for you, please. So firstly, how many complainants are we looking at?
So can we just get all the off-embargo stuff done first, because rather than this back and forth, and then we'll come back
Can
to
we come
yours.
back to that one?
Yeah, last one. So any other...
Well, I do have one on this. So talking about the gang patch, as you mentioned, do you, as the head of police, does it sit right with you that we're now heading towards a point where someone can legally wear a swastika, but not a gang patch? What do you think of that?
I think it's not my job to make the law. I enforce it.
Anything else on the operation?
Do you have any messages for other gangs out there today?
This illustrates the capability the police has to intervene in the most sophisticated offending. So any gang that's out there intent on peddling harm into our communities can expect police to be onto it, and we will hold people accountable.
Last question.
Commissioner, you've seen the Ministry of Justice has published the National Crime Stats. I'm interested in the drug offending there because it shows that Māori more than twice as likely to be charged with cannabis possession. Does this concern you, given recent talk about police fights?
I haven't seen the specific release that you're referring to, but in a general sense, I can say we have looked very carefully at differential rates of prosecution. The raw data is very stark, but when you take account of offence seriousness, you take account of other offending history, the unexplained gap goes from about 300% to 11%, and that is down 8% on 5 years previous. So it's heading in the right direction. We can't fully explain that gap, but I'm confident that a lot of the interventions we have underway, and including Te Pai Oranga, which diverts people into alternative settings, are making a difference.
Commissioner, just finally, how do you expect this operation to affect New Zealand's gang landscape moving forward?
Sorry, New Zealand's?
Gang landscape.
It's really important when we have groups establishing themselves trying to dominate the organised criminal environment that there's a strong response from police that is disruptive, that takes the assets away, that puts leaders in a position where they're at risk of long imprisonment terms. That's what this operation is, and we have to keep doing that, because if you look overseas where organised crime becomes ingrained and able to operate, it has a very corrupting influence right across society. So this is vitally important we keep doing it. It's a great example of what we will continue to do.